When it's going, Gemma.
Okay, it's saying that it's connected, but I don't see it on YouTube. 1 second.
Share the live stream's going, so you can start whenever you like.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order our Mayor's Council meeting. I'd like to begin this morning by acknowledging that the passing of one of our colleagues this summer on August 2nd. As I know we are all aware, Chief Ken Bard, who's been a member of the Mayor's Council this term, passed away after a long battle with cancer this summer. I know over the years we've had a great opportunity to get to know and work with Chief Baird, and you know, he's always been a gentle, thoughtful, and constructive leader who I have tremendously valued his contributions to the work of the Mayor's Council. You know, I've had the great opportunity to visit Chief Baird in Tawasin, and you know, what always came through to me was really his love and dedication to his community, and really he saw this work as service to his community. He was also, though, a great member around our tables. You know, we all come from our individual communities and represent our communities at this table, but we also work together for the regional good, and Chief Baird really did epitomize that work in coming to our tables and working there. We have begun our journey at Translink to embark on our work on reconciliation, and I also want to acknowledge that Chief Baird was you know, really important for us to be able to learn from him and have his perspectives as we started that work. He was also incredibly gracious in that work as well, knowing it was new work. It was work that is difficult and complex, and one that we're going to make mistakes along those journey, but he always made the discussions in the journey one welcoming, and one that was really focused on always just moving forward there. And to that end, you know, I know Chief Baird, you know, was dedicated and worked to the end, and I last had the opportunity to work and meet with him just 2 weeks before his passing on our inaugural Indigenous relations that we've set up, and he was a strong contributor to that. And you know, I think he was really touched that we were taking this important step on our reconciliation journey, and was really passionate towards that. So to the end. So I know he will be deeply missed in the Tawasin community and with his friends and family, but he will definitely be missed around this table. And you know, I believe his contributions to the Tawasin First Nation, but to the Mayor's Council will also live for many years into the future. And I know it was a tough passing there. And now I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded and traditional territories of the Halkamilam, Semiahmoo, and Squamish-speaking peoples. This refers to the language groups that more widely encompass the Indigenous people of many nations who used and continue to use the lands whose Translink territories works and operates and serves. As a council, we recognize the importance of doing our best to build respectful relationships to contribute to the stewardship of the land and the waters of the community with integrity and consideration for future generations. We know that tomorrow is Truth and Reconciliation Day, and I think this is an important opportunity for us in our communities to recognize the difficult histories that we've had in our country, the painful history of residential schools there. But it's also a time for us to reflect upon the work we need to do to move forward with reconciliation. And I know there will be plenty of opportunities for our communities to engage in this tomorrow. But you know, today I know a number of members were wearing orange and have our orange backdrops there to recognize Translink's commitment towards this journey as well. Okay, so I just want to confirm with Mike and Carol that all of the live streaming and quorum we're all good to go.
Yep.
Okay, with that, I will look for just an adoption of our agenda today.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. And we've got two sets of minutes from one from June 30th, actually both from June 30th. If there isn't any questions, I'll get someone to move both sets of minutes.
Move.
Been
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and it is carried. Okay, that brings us to our public delegations, and I believe we have two members of the public that will be presenting to the Mayor's Council this morning. The first speaker on my list is Nathan Davidovich. So Mike, maybe I'll look to you to make sure Nathan is queued up.
For sure. Nathan, we've just joined you. Can you hear us? Nathan, can you hear us? Nathan, you may need to mute the YouTube live stream and then turn on your phone. Nathan, we just joined you. Nathan, can you hear us? We heard you for a second there.
Hello, welcome, Nathan.
Nathan, you may need to mute the.
Thank you, Mayor Cote and members of the Mayor's Council. You hear me okay?
We can, yep. You have the floor.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My name is Nathan Davidovich, and I would like to comment on item 4, the transit funding by Infrastructure Canada. The Mayor Council, Translink, BC Transit did not comment on the BC 2023 budget, but now you are commenting on the 2023 federal budget and Infrastructure Canada transit funding. In case you're not aware, public transportation is a provincial responsibility, and the federal government has funded very few transit projects over the last 60 years. BC has not received its fair share of transit funding since BC nationalized BC Electric in 1962. Starting a 2-month consultation process on July 29 is a good reason why we should not trust Infrastructure Canada. You don't do these things during the summer. The Federal Transit Administration in the U.S. does it way better than our federal government. I've sent the transit survey to all the civic candidates from Hope to Pemberton, and the result will be coming soon, and I think you'll be surprised at the results. And if you haven't answered the survey yet, please answer it. But up to now, the results are completely different than what you approved at Transport 2050 and your 10-year vision plan. So whoever going to be the new councillors and mayors have some different views than the present views of the Mayor's Council. And I don't know, I mean, your new CEO from Baltimore has recommended you to approve those plans, but I predict that the CEO will be soon back, as he will want to participate in the new 500 kilometers per hour maglev high-speed train system to Washington, D.C. So we'll see who is going to be the premier, I presume, in December in B.C., but I think the new premier is going to make changes, and you'll have to deal with it at that time. Well, thank you very much for your support.
Okay, well, thank you, Nathan, for joining us here this morning, and we will be talking about that item later in the agenda. I do think it's important to kind of state publicly that we've actually had tremendous partnerships from the federal government and billions of dollars invested in our transit system here, and certainly the federal and provincial government were huge partners in the Safe Restart program that allowed us to stabilize services during our transit services during the pandemic. So no doubt the province is a huge partner in those discussions, but the federal government is as well. But thank you for joining us. Our next speaker this morning is Joe Kunstler.
So, Chair, it looks like Mr. Kunstler hasn't joined, so I would suggest that we move on from this item, and he'll have an opportunity to join at future meetings, I'm sure.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our public delegates there, and we're now going to move on to a report from Translink Management, and here I'm going to pass it off to our CEO, Kevin Quinn.
Thank you, Chair Cote, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. As this is the final meeting of the current Mayor's Council, I would like to take some time to reflect on an eventful past few years and acknowledge all the work we've accomplished together to get our region on a path toward a more equitable and sustainable future. Next slide, please. Firstly, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that tomorrow, Friday, September 30th, is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And I would like to honor Indigenous peoples and communities impacted by the residential school systems, including survivors, those who never returned home, and their families. Learning about the painful truths of residential schools is an important aspect of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and future generations. Translink, for our part, continues to move forward with our reconciliation efforts, including initiating conversations with Indigenous nations to address a long-standing systemic barrier to bring transportation service options to reserve lands and improve service for Tsawwassen First Nation. We want to continue our efforts to increase cultural recognition through art and signage, which supports Indigenous cultural and language revitalization. Last year, you may recall, we unveiled the Burrard Chinook Sea Bus, showcasing art from Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh artists. We continue to support initiatives, attend events, and share resources to educate employees on current and historical events, including Indigenous peoples. This will be the first year we institute a single zone fair for National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, so Indigenous peoples and others can attend local events to honor those impacted by residential school systems. Further, we initiated an Indigenous employee resource group this summer to create a safe and inclusive place for Indigenous employees to connect with peers and develop their professional network. We really recognize that Translink needs to play an active role to work effectively in the pursuit of thriving and sustainable Indigenous communities. Next slide, please. It would be quite an understatement to say it's been an eventful last 4 years. And while my tenure began in 2021, it's really clear to me that this organization, with the support of the Mayor's Council and the board, has been delivering and really firing on all cylinders for years. From consistently breaking ridership records, delivering on the mayor's vision, to being awarded our industry's highest honor, APTA's 2019 Transit System of the Year, we were making great strides toward the future we want as a region. And of course, we all know that COVID-19 has stalled some of those ambitious plans we had in motion. But I think we're so fortunate to have leadership and policymakers who recognize the value of a robust transit system, especially during a pandemic. And so I'd really like to take a moment to acknowledge the work of everyone in this meeting who lobbied senior levels of government on our behalf for relief funding. I believe this continued investment in sustaining service levels has really aided in our economy's strong recovery and has contributed to Translink's ridership growth really outpacing our North American peers. Next slide, please. I'd also like to spotlight the work of this Mayor's Council for supporting and further advancing the mayor's vision. After everything that's transpired over the last 2 years, it's easy to forget the pace of transit expansion we were undertaking prior to the pandemic. But the legacy of this work is abundantly clear when you just look around the region. From the services people rely on every day, like our 5 rapid bus routes and the new Burrard Chinook Sea Bus, to keeping our system in a state of good repair with upgrades to key stations like Commercial Broadway and Surrey Central, and new services in the pipeline like the Broadway subway and the future Capstan station on the Canada line, in addition to the hundreds of millions of dollars invested into regional walkways, cycling paths, and roads. All of these projects were born from a strong regional consensus that sustainable transportation is good policy. Metro Vancouver has a long and storied history of visionary, forward-thinking planning, and it's this approach that will really take us into the future. Next slide, please. And that's All of that's because, as you know, our region is facing some of the biggest challenges of our time, challenges that you all know require immediate action. And I know everyone in this meeting is already familiar with what we're up against. We're living through an accelerating climate emergency whose destructive impacts we're already feeling, an affordability crisis, leaving many struggling in this increasingly expensive region, and our ongoing ridership recovery from the pandemic. And in the next several slides, I'd like to call out a few areas where I believe this Mayor's Council has helped us meet the moment and begin addressing the challenges outlined here. Next slide, please. First, we know that putting out good service with an intense focus on the customer experience is one of the best ways to encourage people to use transit. Every decision we make, from planning to investing to delivering our services, is done so with our customers in mind, which increases the likelihood that they will return and use our services often. And from the recent opening of our new Translink Customer Service Center to the bike bus service we rolled out over the summer, and the installation of Braille signage on every bus stop across the region, together we are investing in a system that's worthy of the people we serve every day. Next slide, please. We've also been in the sustainable transportation business, but we've made some real progress in the last few years. It's our responsibility as the backbone of the region's sustainable transportation system to do everything we can to respond to the climate emergency. And that means reducing our greenhouse gas emissions to zero, which this Mayor's Council has helped us take meaningful step towards achieving this goal, including the exciting expansion of the battery electric bus program. And with our low carbon fleet strategy and recently adopted climate action strategy, we are on a path to net zero GHG public transportation system by 2050. Next slide, please. I know you've all heard about Transportation 2050 many times. We've all had so many discussions about it over the years. But just give me a second to give this remarkable plan one final shout out, because it's truly going to be one of the enduring legacies of this Mayor's Council, a transportation strategy that will guide our region for the next 30 years, a strategy that includes quadrupling the size of the rapid transit network from 100 to 400 kilometers and building out an 850 kilometer traffic protected major bikeway network, just to name a few. All of this backed by the largest public engagement in the history of this organization, a three-phase process that began in 2019. With Transport 2050, we are on a path to making transportation more sustainable, reliable, convenient, safe, and affordable for decades to come. Next slide, please. Transport 2050, as you may recall, was adopted at the beginning of 2022, cementing our region's vision for a sustainable transportation future. Just 6 months later, we adopted a bold implementation blueprint to put us on a path to achieving the goals set out in the region's new 30-year transportation strategy. And later this morning, you'll be hearing about the Mayor's Council's ideas for how to design the Federal Permanent Transit Fund, which will enable us to deliver on our expansion plans outlined in the 10-year priorities. If there's one thing that's abundantly clear from this slide, the work that we've done this year, it's that we've created a bold and ambitious agenda, and there's no time to waste. And whether it's building the transit system of the future, addressing climate change, or improving the customer experience, we need to continue to build strong partnerships and deliver on investment. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Obviously, there is still much work to be done to stabilize our finances for the next few years, but a strong foundation has been laid thanks to the efforts of this council. Next slide, please. I just want to note, on behalf of everyone at Translink, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your dedication to building a region with sustainable transportation at the forefront. I want to thank you for serving in public office, and to those not running again, thank you for contributing your time and energy into this incredibly important work. We look forward to really keeping the momentum going. Thank you so much. Good to see you all again this morning, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that CEO report, Kevin. I'll now open up to members of the bodies if there's any questions or comments related to the CEO report. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, but thank you, Kevin, very much. And if I can get a motion just to receive that report.
Moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Which now brings us to item 4.1 on the agenda, which is next steps on federal advocacy. And we've all received a report, but I'm going to pass it off to Mike to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just spend a couple minutes summarizing the purpose of the report and the submission itself. The Finance Committee reviewed and recommended that this submission be approved at their meeting last week. The submission was prepared as part of Infrastructure Canada's very extensive public consultation that they launched in April or May, and they've been actively reaching out to transit agencies like ours across the country, local and provincial governments, community business groups, and the public. So this is very much an Infrastructure Canada led process. We're not offering advice that they're not looking for. They're actively looking for input from Canada on how this new generation of transit funding should be designed to maximize impacts. The original deadline for submissions was actually originally tomorrow, and then just a couple of days ago they extended the deadline. But the submission was already on the agenda, and I don't obviously we'll have time if there's amendments coming to this meeting to turn those around. But if not, getting submissions in early is never a bad thing. So this is definitely our opportunity to provide feedback to Infrastructure Canada on how to design and deliver this new transformative funding. And just to clarify, we've actually coordinated with the province of BC in this submission, so they're aware of, and I think supportive of everything here. So to maybe just 2 minutes on what the Permanent Transit Fund is. This is a fund that was announced in the 2021 federal budget to start in 2026, and it'll deliver $3 billion annually across the country every year. And as the name suggests, it's a permanent fund. That would translate, depending on how the program is designed and how it allocates funding, would deliver about $320-ish million per year to Translink. Again, that's indefinitely. And it's the result of several years of very concentrated advocacy by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and actually this body. If you recall, the cure congestion campaign we held during the last federal election actually focused on this as a main ask, and we were very active in FCM's work. It's a 50% increase over current federal transit funding programs that currently deliver, on average about $2 billion a year. So it's a substantial increase. And then, as I said, it's permanent, it's predictable, which is really important for the long-term planning that we do here and in most transit agencies, where we're trying to anticipate what we need to build and service 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So it's a substantial improvement over existing funds, and it's more funds, it's more predictable, and depending on how they design it, and certainly in our conversations with senior officials at Infrastructure Canada, they're planning to design it in a way that we think will be much more efficient and effective in supporting our long-term planning. You'll see, if you look to the submission in your agenda package there, you see there's 4 primary recommendations right at the beginning in that green box. There's also a fairly detailed annex in that submission that contains more detailed responses to a questionnaire that Infrastructure Canada provided from Translink staff. That goes into a bit more detail on especially on how the program could design accountability mechanisms to essentially deliver on federal interest. But I'll just focus on the 4 recommendations. The first one is to actually accelerate the delivery of the Permanent Transit Fund from what's planned now, which is 2026 to 2024, and that will come, I'm sure, as no surprise to anyone on the Mayor's Council, because we've stated that we want the 10-year priorities, the Transport 2050 10-year priorities, to start being implemented in 2024 when we actually approve the first phase of that in the next investment plan. So in order to support that, we're going to need a sort of the federal, we'll be looking for a federal share towards that funding. So we're calling for PTF to be accelerated by a couple of years. I understand that other big cities across the country and in BC will be mirroring that call. We're not the only ones that have essentially allocated all of the currently accessible federal transit funding. We've already allocated all those to specific projects, even though those funds actually extend to 2026 because we have long-term plans. We've all allocated all those to projects in the current 10-year vision through the last investment plan we approved earlier. So that's the first recommendation. The second one is to some, it might seem a little policy wonkish, but we think it's really important because of how we do regional planning here, which is that we want this new fund to actually look a little bit more like the province's commitment. The province, as you know, has committed in the past to provide 40% of the capital cost towards our long-term plan. That was a 10-year vision. They haven't yet been clear going forward. So they're working through the 10-year priorities right now. But what we're calling for is the federal government to, just like the province has, and hopefully will continue to do, commit to funding and supporting our plan rather than individual projects. Because individual transit projects are part of a transit network, and the network is designed in a way to achieve a whole range of objectives we've approved through Transport 2015 10-year priorities. If you want to achieve real objectives around housing or housing affordability or climate change or economic competitiveness or congestion, you need to fund a network that's designed to deliver in a long-term plan. So we think this would actually improve the accountability to the federal government. I think it would help tell a better story to the public as well. And the conversations that happened with Infrastructure Canada so far have actually been really positive in this aspect. I know they've looked at Translink, and how we work with the province is a bit of a model for other countries, how we have very strong regional plans, both land use and transportation, how closely we're aligned with and work with the province of BC. The third recommendation isn't specific to the Permanent Transit Fund, but it's important for us to begin delivering the 10-year priorities in 2024, which is to permanently double the Canada Community Building Fund. It used to be called the Federal Gas Tax Fund. They've changed the name. You may recall that this fund was doubled in 2019 and 2022 as sort of a one-time impact. We're suggesting this actually be doubled so that that provides more funding for local government services like Translink, like transit across the country. And then the final one, and this is actually an important recommendation, is for the federal government to work with the Mayor's Council and Translink and the province to develop a new funding model for transit. I said earlier that the Permanent Transit Fund is a 50% increase over existing federal transit funding. And when we advocated for this fund in 2020, which are 2019 and 2020, we calculated how much money we thought at the time we would need to fund essentially the successor to the 10-year vision of the time. And we felt that 50% increase should be sufficient. But of course, what we found since then is that transit is being asked to do much more just in the last few years than the country has expected of transit in the past, which is why the 10-year priorities is so ambitious, designed specifically to meet federal and provincial climate change objectives and support the affordable housing crisis, which means that the funding that we're going to need to deliver that 10-year priorities is going to be substantially more than in the past. You all know this, that's not new. For all the improvements the Permanent Transit Fund will bring and how much more funding it'll bring, it's actually not enough. It's probably about half of what we might need, or 2/3 of what we might need for a federal share towards the capital costs of 10-year priorities, to say nothing of the very, very significant increases to operating costs, which is something we'll have to work with the province. So we wanted to leave a marker with the federal government that although the PTF is a huge improvement and will allow us to get started in delivering TYP, it's not going to be sufficient in terms of a federal share. And as you know, when we approved the 10-year priorities in June, we said at the time that we are going to need a new way of funding transit. We don't know exactly how that looks now, but because we're looking at very significant increase in operating costs to support TYP as well as in the capital side, the current 40-40-20 cost share funding model on capital and the 100% of regional or of operating costs that are borne by the region just isn't going to work if we're going to be able to achieve all the objectives we laid out in Transport 2050 around things like climate change, access to housing affordability, the mobility options that we've set out. So we wanted to leave that as a marker, but we do think that especially by accelerating PTF, to start in 2024. It's going to allow us to get going with the first phase of TYP as scheduled in 2024, and that's going to give us a bit of time to work on this new model. So with that, Chair, I'll stop and happy to answer any questions. But just as a last step, if the body approves this submission, I mean, there's already a draft on our website, obviously, as part of the agenda package. We'll share it with the federal government, and then when the new council reconvenes in November. Sometime between November and January, I think we'll start to hear some feedback. I mean, not just us, but the transit sector from Infrastructure Canada on where it's heading with PTF.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. And I think we all recognize the importance of setting up the permanent transit fund federally. And we were, I would say, probably one of the strongest advocates across the country that really put our case forward successfully to have that implemented. But as we all know, the devil is in the details with how these plans are implemented and how they actually work on the ground here. So I think this type of specific feedback is critically important for us to give. And Mike, I really appreciate your summary of kind of the four key elements that we're advocating for. So I'm now going to open up to the group for any questions or comments. With Mayor Vandenbroek.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that presentation, Mike. I fully support this. And I just want to give you a word of kudos and your staff and everybody at Translink and everybody here for all the hard work that we've done on this Cure Congestion campaign and for listening. When we went to Ottawa, we were told we've got great plans, but we're never here. And thankfully, you Translink staff listened and we listened, and here we are now, and it's greatly needed. So I just want to say kudos to everyone, because I think this has been a really big feat. And I know going to Ottawa and hearing what they had to say there, it was an eye opener. And I'm just glad we've followed through on this. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Vandenbroek. Mayor Dingwall.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And since this is my last meeting, I sat and listened to Mike go through a very complex business strategy. And Mike, I just want to say we're super happy with you in your role, and you give us sound and sage advice and have done so over the last 4 years. I sat and listened, and I was just absolutely impressed. So this is really just about Mike, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, with that, Mayor Dingwall, do you want to move the recommendation in the report?
Absolutely. I'll move it.
Okay. And it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Okay, that brings us up to item 5.1 on the agenda, which is a report for myself on our mandate renewal. First want to take an opportunity to really appreciate and thank the Mayor's Council for all the work that we have done this term. As I ride off into the sunset, I couldn't help but want to kind of leave a few parting remarks in this report. Number one, reflecting on the difficult but rewarding journey we've gone on and some of the successes we've had. I think when we started this term, this was an incredibly ambitious group and really wanted to move our transit system forward. But the world did come to a change at the beginning of 2020, and ultimately we had to reflect on what was possible and what were the new realities. As I think many people recall, in October 2020, we had a really good discussion about what our mandate and how we wanted to finish up the last 2 years of the term, given the new realities of the pandemic and the significant impact it was having on transit systems there. And I think it was critically important for us to actually be incredibly focused during this time on really what were the big things that we needed to get done. And we identified two major priorities at that time. Number one was COVID recovery and the development of an investment plan to bring some financial sustainability to the Translink organization. And our second major goal was to continue to keep an eye to the future and move forward with our long range plan with Transport 2050 and the 10-year priorities. On our first task, as we all know, we were successful in adopting an investment plan and providing what I would say is some short-term financial stability to Translink. We were also very aggressive in terms of our advocacy, both provincially and federally, for support during the pandemic period. And I think we owe a lot of gratitude to our provincial and federal partners for the restart funding that allowed us to provide stability during this period, and allowed us to be able to continue to provide the important transit service to the Metro Vancouver region. Although I think it was a big accomplishment moving forward with the investment plan, I know our original goals were to really address the long-term funding sustainability for the organization, and I think we need to be upfront. We didn't quite hit that important target, but I think we have given our some time over the next couple of years to really engage into what is that longer-term financial sustainability for Translink that not only will allow us to be able to recover from the pandemic, but will also allow us to enact some of the ambitious plans we have. And in that regard, in terms of a long-range planning, I think for this body in the last 9 months to be able to adopt Transport 2050 and the 10-year priorities is an incredible accomplishment. Took a lot of collaboration and a lot of work and a lot of meetings, but I think we really have set a really good path forward for the Translink organization as we emerge out of the pandemic and get back to expanding our transit system. I also wanted to, in my report, to kind of give a bit of a nod to the future, though. And I think we are well positioned moving forward, but I think we all recognize there are some major challenges that are going to be facing the Mayor's Council and Translink in the next term. I think first and foremost, and identified it in the report, is the funding challenges and the need for a long-term funding sustainable model that recognizes the changing dynamics of the pandemic, but also recognizes the need to get new funding sources to be able to properly sustain and expand our transit system will be critical. And I think finding consensus along the Mayor's Council, finding consensus with the provincial government, and finding consensus with the general public, those aren't going to be easy tasks, but to me, it will be the most important work that the next Mayor's Council will need to engage in and will need to engage with on day one. Now, I think we've all recognized in our long-term plans, we've also, I think, found some very innovative and new approaches to be able to expand transit in our region a lot more cost effectively in a way that really addresses some of the regional equity that in our region and gets to areas that have not been well served in the past. And we really did make the decision to have what I would say is a bus first approach and really look to using innovative bus rapid transit to be able to more quickly deliver rapid transit in the region. And although I'm hugely supportive and a strong advocate for that, I think we also need to recognize that this is new to the region. And I think the reality is we need to make sure our funding partners provincially and federally, who tend to want to support kind of big ticket rail projects as funding partners, are not as familiar as supporting bus projects. And I think some work is definitely going to have to be done to really make the case as to why this is an important way to help all of our levels of government achieve what our climate goals and how transportation is a big component of that. We're also going to have to bring the public along. And, I think some of the early indications that the public is definitely open to the idea and excited about expanding transit into areas of our region that don't have high quality rapid transit. But it is new, and there is a perception in the community that if it's not SkyTrain, then maybe it's not as high of a quality. And I think a lot of work is going to have to be done in the next Mayor's Council to really bring the broader community on board and to really recognize the benefits that we have approached there. And finally, I think with a look forward, I think it's we can all agree that the major challenges we face in the Metro Vancouver region really focus on, in my opinion, two major issues. It's kind of the affordability challenges we have in a high cost region like Metro Vancouver, which mainly focuses on housing, but filters into a lot of different areas in our communities and puts stresses on our communities. and our strong desire and interest to ensure we're doing everything we can to address the climate emergency. And these two big challenges, I think, loom over all of our heads as we have done our work moving forward. And I think we'll continue to have to be front of mind as we kind of navigate the future and the decisions that we have to make. But I am, as I've said many times around this table, cautiously optimistic that the next Mayor's Council is going to be able to take up these challenges and really navigate us into the future. If I could say any parting lessons in terms of how well this group has worked together is, I think our greatest successes, despite all the challenges we've had, not only in the past 4 years, but in the past 8 years, has really been, when this group has been able to work collaboratively and work together as a team. We all sit around this table with our representing our communities and no doubt advocating for our communities, but we also have an important role to put those regional caps on to recognize we're trying to build a transportation system that is achieving some bigger, broader regional goals, and being able to work collectively has been critically important in that effort there. And I think that is going to be, having that mindset is going to be absolutely critical to addressing those challenges that I outlined before. So it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to represent the Mayor's Council for the past 4 years. And it's going to be tough for me to say goodbye today as my last Mayor's Council meeting, but I think we can all be incredibly proud of the work we've accomplished during this term, and thank you. With that, I will open it up. Mayor Walker.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jonathan. And just kind of following on the kind words that Bill shared with us earlier. Yourself and Jack have truly, in my opinion, been stellar and been the steady hand on the wheel. And when it comes to Translink, that's very, very important. You've led us through some very, very difficult times. I really have no way of balancing what the past looked like, and who knows what the future looks like. But the two of you, because I think you're just patient, upstanding individuals, you're very thoughtful. You look at each side of the issue, the question, the problem, and try and find the best solutions. To yourself and to Jack, I just want to say thank you very much. For a new mayor 4 years ago, you've meant a lot because you've been able to bring me along slowly and give me the information I needed, I think, to be part of the decision making of this body. So wish you all the best, and as well to Jack and whatever you do in the future.
No, thank you very much, Mayor Walker. Mayor Harvey.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to yourself and Jack, on behalf of the citizens of Delta, thank you for your leadership over the last 4 years. The journey ahead is in a much better direction thanks to both of you. So again, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I won't repeat what Mayor Walker and Mayor Harvey said, or I'll try not to, but I do think it's not an exaggeration to say that transit and Translink has faced a near existential crisis through the pandemic. When your core business drops off by more than 50% in the middle of a pandemic, it's not business as usual. And the fact is, over the past 4 years, despite this kind of cataclysmic event for transit, we are in an infinitely better place than we were 4 years ago in terms of transit planning, support for transit, and sort of cohesiveness on the Mayor's Council and with the board. And I think that credit goes to the people around the table. I think it's been a pleasure to work with all of the mayors. It's certainly been one of the most enjoyable things I've done in my time on council. So that's great. And obviously Mayor Froese and Mayor Cote's leadership has been excellent, but also instructive. I think I've learned a lot from them. Having a lighter hand on the tiller, but still keeping control is a very creating room for discussion and still keeping a handle on things is it's an art rather than a science, and they've really demonstrated tremendous skill. Mr. Buddha has been excellent. I don't think we all realize how much he makes us look good and how smooth he makes the relationship between the Mayor's Council and Translink and senior levels of government I would say he's like a proverbial iceberg, and that most of his activities are under the surface and not seen. But unlike an iceberg, he hasn't caused us to founder on in the seas. On the other hand, we've actually had success after success, and then obviously Translink staff, I think, serve us very well. We've had two excellent CEOs. We've had planning staff that we worked with who are just so bright and so thorough. And frankly, it's really satisfying to see the whole arc of this organization and to be a very small part of it. From the transit referendum to now, it's gone from bad to good, and it's only going to get better. And I'm absolutely confident that the next mayor's council will take up the mantle, because I think public sentiment is now expects excellent transit in the region, understands the importance of excellent transit in the region, and is willing to make the necessary investments and accommodations to make it happen. So thank you all for the experience, and much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Councillor Cameron, and thank you to all my colleagues for the kind words. And I appreciate the indulgence with me bringing this report forward here today. And I really do hope it is a useful to as the group starts to think about its next steps moving forward. Truly passionate about the work we do and the work we've done with our transportation system in the region, and I'm really excited to see where the next Mayor's Council takes us. So thank you. So with that, if I can get a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we're getting near the end of our last open meeting, and I did want to take a moment to recognize not only the body as a whole, and I know many folks are busy in their election campaigns, and I do want to wish everyone the best of luck. I know it's an incredibly stressful and busy time going through the election season, but keep your head up and keep going. It will move forward soon. But we do have a number of folks around the table, like myself, who are not continuing on this journey, and I did want to give an opportunity to recognize them. First, I'd like to recognize my Vice Chair, Mayor Froese. Mayor Froese, you've kind of been a good a stable force, and someone I've been able to bounce ideas on over the past 4 years that have been challenging years, and you've been an absolute pleasure to work with, and certainly have served in your role as Vice Chair and had a really steady hand here. And I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate all the work you've done, and the close working relationship you and I have had over the past number of years. I'd also like to recognize Mayor Dingwall, who is was a new mayor to the region, but I think quickly stepped up as almost really a veteran around the table, with so many new mayors around the table, and played an important leadership role. And I spoke before about taking that regional approach. Mayor Dingwall, I think you always came with that thoughtful regional approach and wanting to put the region first in your thoughts there, and no doubt we're a really strong contributor to the body as well too. Mayor Vagramoff, I want to acknowledge your time here on the Mayor's Council. You definitely brought some new energy to the group, and we're very spirited and engaged in our long range planning, Transport 2050. And I think we can all see the elements that we were championing and advocating through there. And I know there are things that you were really passionate about seeing in those plans there. And thank you for all of your contributions.
Thank you,
and last but not least, I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Cameron there. I think Councillor Cameron, you have been a transit advocate at heart, and really been one of the champions to really supporting the expansion of our transit system, and really caring about our transit system. I've also really appreciated your thoughtful approach that the decisions we need to make although we need to follow our heart in those decisions, but they have to be based in good data, and they have to be justified there. And I think that is an important lens that that you have brought around the table. So thank you to all of you. Now, Mike, I know we have a bit of a parting gift to our departing mayors, and we're not in person, so we can't do this the way we normally would. But maybe, Mike, if you want to introduce that and provide a visual, so at least people can somewhat see what we've got here.
Is it our very own bus?
It's your very own bus stop. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, Mike, if you want to explain.
For sure, yes, it's not your very own bus, and if you actually erected one of these bus stops on a street, I don't think a bus will stop for you, but you may feel good about waiting there. Yeah, so this isn't something we've done in the past, but we thought it might be for all of the immense amount of energy and work and time that Mayor's Council members put in, a little memento of all that time, all those times, good and bad, for you. You can see that actually Chair Cote was a guinea pig in receiving one a couple of weeks ago, and we've got these signs being printed now. Your very own Translink bus stops. You'll never forget the all the transit related work you've done here, and the bus numbers in most cases are real bus routes from your own community, so it's a very small token of our appreciation for the huge amount of work that I know that all of you have had to put in. But I'll send it back to Jonathan.
No, well, thank you, Mike, and yeah, I think it's the least we can do to recognize the countless meetings and hours we put in and dedication there. And I can confirm I have tried to try and get buses' attention, and they don't pay attention to these bus stops. So unfortunately, it will just have to be a momentum. But thank you, everyone. Mayor Froese.
Thank you very much. Now I'm gonna have to go get a bus and paint it up, and drive it around my farm, I guess, and put that sign up. Then it'll stop. Thank you very much, Jonathan. I wanted to. Jonathan's very humble, and as we all know, that Mayor Cote is also leaving us and going on to hopefully better and greener pastures after being mayor of the New Westminster, and also serving us so well as the chair of the Mayor's Council. And I wanted to really thank Jonathan for all the work, the dedication, and the energy that he's put into this. I look back to the first meeting of this term, and it was a bit, it was challenging. And Jonathan, he was able to work us through that. Then we hit a downturn because of COVID. We all know what happened, and Jonathan was there. No, we're going to keep on going, and we talked about it. It was a very difficult time. Difficult decisions had to be made, and what were we going to do to keep Translink alive through that period? But Jonathan still had a vision, and he believed the vision of transportation in our region had to move forward, and he did. He provided us the leadership that we really needed at the time. So Jonathan, thank you very much. And if you put your sign up on my farm, my bus will stop for you too. So there you go. I wanted to just say a few things, a few parting remarks. I've been on the Mayor's Council for 3 terms. Mayor Brody, you're much senior to me, and I know the wisdom that you brought to the Mayor's Council has been invaluable, and I'm really glad that you're still continuing on this journey, running for mayor again, and I know you'll bring that wisdom to the next Mayor's Council. I look back to 11 years ago where we were then, and I looked at where we are today, and this is one group, one organization that I believe has really moved forward. I don't look back and say, well, we spun our wheels for 11 years. We didn't. We moved this region forward. The face of governance at Translink has changed. I know there's always, we're always looking for improvements and how we can do a better job in governance. But I look back when the Mayor's Council, I was a new guy on the Mayor's Council. I didn't even know who the board was. It was like 2 poles, north and south pole. Over time, we've come very close to the board and realized that we have one mission and one goal, and that goal is to provide reliable transportation to the residents of our region. And I believe we worked very well together. And, going through the referendum that we had to go through to look for funding. And even though the vote didn't go the way we wanted, what came out of it was a great working relationship between staff, the board, and the Mayor's Council, and a better, deeper understanding of each other's roles. And I think that was one of the most important things that's happened over the last 11 years. And then this term, we started off with a huge turnover of mayors, 75% turnover, where all of a sudden I felt like I was the old guy on the block. Very, very few of us remaining, but a lot of new faces who also had that same desire to provide good transportation for our residents. And I see that there's that this Mayor's Council will be in good hands as we leave and make room. There are a lot of good leaders, excellent leaders here that will take this organization even further and make it even better. And I'm very confident of that, and I'm very proud of working with everyone here. I want to wish those who are running for re-election I want to wish them all the best, and hope to see everyone back. You do have that depth of understanding of what we're doing, and I really want to wish you the best. And I want to thank those who are departing for making that decision to move on. I know we all have, I always say right from the beginning, I have a best before date. I just don't know what it is. I know that I probably have more to give, but I'm quite happy to leave and leave it in good hands. I also adhere to the fact that there's the graveyard's full of indispensable people, and I know that we all move on to other things at some time. And I'm really proud of the achievements that we've made, and I'm really looking forward to the next chapter in my life. And I want to thank everyone. And I also want to thank Kevin. I've been through one Ian and two Kevins while I was here as CEOs. And Kevin, really appreciate your leadership, coming on board. Coming on board during a pandemic, during a crisis, and your positive outlook just gives us all encouragement to go forward. And Mike, when you came on board, it's like the old days. There was a mayor who's the chair trying to work on the side of his desk to make this thing happen and get us all together. And then you came along and started to give us a direction and organization, and the experience that you have in working with other levels of government has been indispensable. And I want to thank you very much for all that you've done. So with that, I won't take up too much more time, but Jonathan, thank you for your leadership. And I know you'll do well in your future. Again, thank everyone for what they've contributed to this great organization. And it is truly a great organization. Thank you.
No, well, thank you, Mayor Froese, and I think those wonderful comments, really recognizing the whole team, I think is a perfect way to end our last public meeting here at the board, the Mayor's Council. So thank you, Mayor Froese. Last item on the agenda is next meeting, which is November 7th, and that's the next chapter of the Mayor's Council begins there. And with that, one final thank you to this group, and if I can get a motion to adjourn our meeting. Seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Thanks very much, everyone.